left this weekend with more questions than answers, and that is incredible. And especially with the two USCs, and figuring out where we go from here. We were talking about the Notre Dame game, so let's stick with the Trojans first. With this, life is difficult for USC. Like, and some of it has to do with Notre Dame's defense, which was really, really good. Like, and it's important to note that they were a very, very good defense on this. And Neil Ivey was so happy to be hearing that her team called a defensive team in the post game. But in the half court, it looks so difficult, and this has been in several games now where it just looks so difficult, and cracking the code on this Juju and Kiki Iriafen duo has just been so much tougher than anticipated. And Lindsay had talked about it. Lindsay Gottlieb, the head coach of USC, like in the post game as well. Like, it's very much like they know, like they understand the half court offense is the issue, but figuring it out and figuring out the way to pivot is obviously the question that must be answered now. For you guys, like, what did you see in this game from USC that has to change, and where do you kind of hope the direction is going forward?
Juju Whisperer, you're first. I'm handing you that.
No, I mean,
passion defense.
No, I just think, like, Lindsay got a brand new Lambo. She can't find the button to start. She's gonna figure it out, but it's just right now she's just like hitting things like, okay, well, it was the windshield wipers. Like, all right, where's the lights? Where's the lights? So I think she'll get it together. I'm not really worried about it. I will say that Dawn Staley having an embarrassment of riches over the years has kind of spoiled people because she makes it look easy. Like, you can say what you want about some of the decisions, some of the lineups, but like at the end of the day, she started getting the, McDonald's All-American pipeline flowing to Columbia. Everybody gets a Bojangles biscuit on the way in, and there wasn't a whole bunch of everything didn't look as choppy as it has for the first year with LSU, the new super team, and even like last year, like you had those growing pains and they were very, very glaring, and then they smoothed it out. But like Dawn makes it look easy. So I trust that this is an arduous task, but I think she'll figure it out. I don't think it's time to panic just yet. Everybody can't make it look like Dawn does.
That's very true. I'm panicking slightly because
I can hear it in your voice a little bit. I can.
It's the system. And that's what I wonder, like, can you realistically change your system? The way I kind of equate what USC does is like option routes in football, right? Where a wide receiver has he has one stem route, and then he can go one or two or three ways depending on what the coverage gives him. And it's up to the quarterback to know every single option route of every single receiver. And when he goes through his progressions, he knows, okay, the defense is giving me this, so this receiver is going to go here, and this receiver is going to go here, and I have to make the choice that's the right one. And the receiver has to make the right choice too. That is kind of how USC operates, where it's like you have a set, but there are 2 to 3 different variations of the set you can run based off what you're seeing defensively if you're the primary ball handler. So my concern is, if you need to get really specific, can you? Or is the way the system is built too reliant on choice routes, essentially? And if it is, then this is a chemistry thing that it's going to get ugly before it gets better. And it might not get better. That's where the bit of panic comes in. I have a feeling that they'll figure this out and they'll get it right. But the concern is that requires everybody being on the same page to want to do exactly what they want to do. And a lot of these players, mind you, like a Kiki Iriafen or a Talia von Oelhoffen, they are coming from systems that were overtly rigid, right? Like Oregon State system is you have a
maybe
job,
the most
and that is
rigid
all
in
you
the
do.
entire
Straight
country.
up. Stanford was the same. Like Stanford Tara's system was like you have a role and that is your role. Whereas here it is it's very nebulous. And so when you're taking players from super rigid systems and they are like kids in candy shops, it's like, how do you rein that in? And look, you have to do that with Juju a little bit too. Like, how do you rein in Juju and make her someone that is less of a I have to press because we're not getting the movement or the scoring we need, so I have to do it myself. Like, how do you rein that in? Because last year it was cool for her to do that because she was the system.
Yeah.
But now you have another WNBA caliber player on this roster. So, like, how do you mix and match and balance these things properly? That's my panic with USC. With South Carolina, I'm a little less panicked because it's Dawn Staley. She has earned the benefit of the doubt here. The Malaysia Fulwiley stuff I know on the surface is funky to people. There's two sides to a story, and the truth lies somewhere in the middle, right? Like we've heard stories of she wasn't paying attention on the bench, and Dawn tried to get her back in, and she didn't bring her back in. We've heard stories that she did hear that and did not want to come back in, so Dawn said, "You're done for the game." There's a lot of different discussions happening, and Dawn always falls on the sword for her players and does not subject them to scrutiny in the public sphere if they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And I commend her for that. That's a good coach mentality is you take that agita on you and you do not put that on the kid. But realistically, even if that's true, Malaysia Fulwiley can be right in her frustration of feeling like I'm being tethered a little bit more than other players on this roster, or my skill set is being put on a leash a little bit harder. And Dawn is also correct in thinking if you do not have the requisite focus that we need to do what we need to do as champions, then you have to earn what you get. And she does that with everyone. She's lost players in recruiting for this reason, right? So I am less worried now having done, the journalism thing and all of us kind of went and talked and figured out kind of what the situation is out there. I have a little bit more of a faith that that's going to be figured out long-term here, as opposed to what I thought after the UCLA game was like, Jesus Christ, this girl's going to transfer.
Yeah.
And honestly, the one thing I think that, and Shawnee, I'll let you jump in here, is the one thing that I do wonder about with them is their front court, not their back court. I think their back court, it's just a level of play thing and they'll figure that out. But like, she always has a really dominant back to basket center, whether that's Asia, Camilla, or Aaliyah Boston. So what happens here when you've got Chloe Kitts, who's more of a face-up four, and Ashlyn Watkins, who's more of a rim runner, and Joyce, who feels like a face-up four? Like, what do you do when you don't have that traditional back-to-basket player? I guess that's Adele, right? I don't know where you have that. So that's the challenge that I'm excited to see what Dawn does, because it doesn't feel like that traditional presence is there the same way that it used to be. But she's Dawn Staley. It's more than likely she will figure it out.
Right.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I feel like the opposite. I'm not super worried about West Coast USC, but I am a little worried about my USC, my other USC, my first USC, my oldest USC, my firstborn USC. Because. And it's more so of like a fan vibe thing. Like, we struggle in those years after we lose key players. Like when Ty and Kiki go to the draft and we're looking for, one, our edge player. Mad Kiki was the enforcer. And then Ty was the stabling force. So as we're figuring it out, like, we're still talented enough to make it to the Final Four. But it's like when those questions come up as we try and find that person, and that person emerges as that girl and gets really comfortable in that role, it doesn't result in a championship. And I'm okay with that if it's, but I thought last year was the year to learn and to find that person and, do all of that stuff and prepare it for this year. And we won a championship with no losses. So I'm kind of like, now we kind of got to recalibrate. Yeah. So now we have some question marks, and I don't mind giving the team time to figure it out and not expecting a championship this year and, setting some things up for next year. We just peaked a little early in terms of title window than I thought, and we could do it in year 3. But I don't think that this year 2 is going to be that one. SoCal, to me, it can be like, I hear exactly what you're saying, and in my head, I'm just like, make it simple. Like, y'all just go out there and hoop. I'm sorry. Like, I watched Russell Westbrook with no half-court offense have a career year, get Jeremy Grant paid. Like, everybody that played with him in 17, Steven Adams, like, everybody had, like, darn near a career year. And they was just hooping and vibing. So it's like, maybe take out some of the structure and add a little more, like, intuitive offense, which I think is what Tanisha Wright. Bring in Tanisha Wright.
Oh, that's not what that does not make me feel good. Read and react is not that does not engender a lot of confidence.
No, I mean, like, yeah, you're taking a risk, obviously, but you're taking a risk now that everybody's gonna remember, like, the 6-step process and where they're supposed to be after, and with the check down, and then do they have the arm to get it there? I don't know, but like, which risk are you willing to take? And I feel like they'll figure it out, and it'll become a little more fluid as they learn each other and like learn, okay, this is actually kind of what I naturally want to do anyway. So like, if you do this, so I'm not as worried about that as I am like the defending champion with self-proclaimed repeat tour allegations looming. That's where I'm kind of like, y'all, it's title or bust. Like, that's why I didn't like us saying that much, but it's here now, so we could still do it. Like, I'm not saying that we're out already. I am saying history has shown, and then especially with the Aces not winning, like, we're kind of tethered. So it's just more of these vibes that we could overcome. But
I just don't want a nobody believed in us run here. Please. I just don't. As I am speaking to you, Shawnee, as the like the voice of Gamecock Nation here of fans. Please don't Kirby Smart this. I can't do.
Y'all count us out.
I can't do. I want the apology as loud as the disrespect. Like, please.
I can't promise you I won't bring the Marvin Sapp clip. If I start singing, never would have made it. I don't know what to tell you because nobody believed in this, man. We weren't supposed to be here.
We're gonna bookmark this episode for April 2nd when they go back to back.
Oh.
And Johnny's gonna be sitting here, like, dropping from the rafters like Sting. Like, I told you. I'm not ready.
No, because like my thing will be like, oh God, I thought UConn was gonna win it. Thank God we did that, because I didn't take a Liberty and a UConn title in the same calendar year. Like, no, please.
I'll tell you. For me, the biggest thing that I took away from this, and this is just registered like on like the stat broadcasts like that they have like live in the games and everything. South Carolina attempted 10 registered layups in this game.
What's an unregistered layup? Hold on.
I think so. It's saying on here that there are 10 layups on the stat broadcast. Like, they have like jumper. Look, you know what? I'll share the screen for
no, I'm sorry, but it's just like the layup, like renewing like your car registration. Like, the layup didn't update its tags. Like, what?
They're ready, and so like this is give or take. So I want to preface that. But the point that I'm trying to make here, regardless, is the ease of bucket getting for South Carolina was never there. Getting into the paint, not even like just from like the back to the basket big, which is absolutely true. It just wasn't there. And a lot of that has to do with Lauren Betts being the defender that she is and just the anchor of the defense that she is. But this new formula of trying to win being more based on guards for South Carolina is just more volatile than we have ever seen really in like a decade, like since Asia Wilson. Like, we haven't really seen a volatile in this sense of like you are relying on guards to make shots. And that's not a South Carolina problem. That's just basketball. Like, it's easier to have a dominant big hitting the layup than it is to have a guard making a three. It just is. And this is different. And we didn't really see, like, Tessa Johnson was really the only one that showed up in the first half. She was phenomenal.
I love her.
Yeah, no, Tessa's great. And to that point, I'm like, what is it? A starting lineup change? Is it because we've seen slow starts now? We saw it against Clemson. Like, is it a starting lineup change? Is it? And the slow starts aren't like uncommon, I guess, for South Carolina over the years. So like, I'm not like sound the alarm over that, but like. There has to be some level of change for this because this didn't work. And
I do think to your point, I think this is kind of what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years with these South Carolina teams, where somebody does something to catch up or to introduce a new wrinkle, and it catches SC, and then Don adjusts, and then Don vaporizes everybody like Galactus.
Yeah,
like. Because realistically speaking, right, that was the whole Iowa thing. The whole Iowa thing was 3-point shooting and bring you out the paint, and Big Nano can match Aaliyah Boston for a period, and you don't have any 3-point shooters, and Iowa wins in the Final Four. And then Don goes out and says, "All right, bet," and basically rules the field, winning a championship with a 6'7" dynamic big and 3-point shooting. The hallmark of that team was the overwhelming depth that once you got to Iowa in that championship game, it didn't matter. Like you could have an issue with, Camilla getting in foul trouble and Watkins is there, and Iowa's 7 deep and you're 10 deep. But for the first time, it feels like there are other teams outside of UConn that have that depth. Like that's what I noticed with UCLA is I was like,
yeah.
Everybody UCLA is bringing off the benches as good as South Carolina's benches, and that is not something that we have seen very often. So this might, there might be the paradigm change here, if even for a season, that there might be a deeper team than South Carolina. But you know what? Even if it doesn't happen this year, again, benefit of the doubt for Dawn Staley. She's going to come back next year and just fix the problem. That's what she does. So, there's this is November. Like we'll see it in April. There's a ton of time to figure this out. I do think there are some structural things with this roster that maybe it might come back to haunt them just in terms of like personnel on personnel, but it's November.
Yeah.
But this is
I really think they just got to get me back in the building because that's the streak that still has not ended. The South Carolina Gamecocks have not lost a game when I've been in attendance. This has been from here to Minnesota to California. Like, I'm gonna make time. I'm getting back. I'm gonna make time. I just got to get back in the building. You got to get back.
February 16th, you get your lick back.
Hey,
you on at CLA.
No, that'll be like my 4th time seeing Paige.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm tired. I'm exhausted.
Hey,
if she loses in front of me,
good Lord. I guess I was in the building for the last 2 losses because I was at Iowa too. Sorry.
All right, so I think this is what we're saying. We're looking for things to fix. We're looking keep you out. Bring me in.
No more boots on the ground.
Well, not from you anyway.
It's just a specific type of boot.
Yeah, this is true. I just
cowboy boot.
They're gonna call you shoes on the ground if this keeps up.
Hey, don't worry. I got boots. Chelsea or Tim's, take your pick. But no,
you had to get it back because you saw those tweets.
I saw the tweets. People questioning my boots. I don't wear cowboy boots, but I got boots. Okay, and these boots stay on the ground. But I mean, I guess I saw the NC State win, so I'm not completely losing streak for South Carolina.